2024 meeting of Pittsburgh Planning Board to order. Welcome y'all, and thanks for coming out in a crummy weather night. Okay, I will certify that we have a quorum. We have 6 out of 7. And we need a motion to adopt the agenda.
I make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Okay, motion made by Frida Alston, second by Bill Baker. Any discussion or questions about the agenda? Amendments, additions? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the agenda is adopted as stated. Now we move to the approval of minutes, and I want to start with asking, did everybody get Jenna's update to the minutes about a day after the original? Yes, okay, which talked about the number of people spoke at the last meeting. All right, are there any additions or corrections to the minute as we receive them?
I saw one thing. Were you here last week, Matt? And on the minutes, it said that you were present. So that was.
Yeah, good catch. I did see that.
Yeah.
Yep. Any other corrections or additions?
Will we approve?
And I'll second that with the note, with the added in.
Right, we have a motion from Bill Baker, a second from Frida, with the amended statement that Matt was not present at the last meeting. All right. Any further discussion? All in favor of approval of the minutes as stated, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. Is there anybody here that wishes to make public comment tonight for any purpose?
We don't want it. We don't want any.
All right. Let's move into item 6, old business. Did anyone bring any old business tonight? Looks like Randy did. No?
He says
You're just preparing for new business?
no.
Any old business from the board? All right, let us move into new business then. Let's call on Randy.
Yes, good evening. I wanted to introduce the newest member of our staff. This is Brian Colley.
Hello.
Hello, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
He's a planner too. And he just joined us
Last Monday.
last Monday. Yes,
Welcome, Brian.
he'll be
Thanks for having me.
here every meeting from here on out.
Yes, sir.
All right. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Election of officers. That's where you are now.
I didn't hear you.
Election of officers.
Section of officers.
We done the new business already? Oh,
We're already there. I'm sorry.
oh
Pay attention, Frida.
my
Okay, so we are deficient a chairman. And we will start with that.
I nominate Carl Shaver.
I will second that.
There's a nomination for me, and I will make this statement that I will accept it. I'm making that statement theoretically or hopefully on a temporary basis, but I'm not going to walk away and leave anyone stranded, to be sure. But if there's anyone else that feels like they would like to nominate another member or nominate themselves for chairman, that is perfectly fine too. Are there any other nominations? I got all night. I can wait y'all out. Okay, there's a motion to close nominations.
I'll second that motion.
All right, now, Bill Baker moved to close nominations. Corey, it's seconded. So all in favor of closing nominations, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Sounds like a railroading to me. All right, so nominations are closed. So do we take a vote or is it by acclamation? Okay.
And any other, theoretically, I guess you could, but it's up to you.
No, we don't need that.
I do need a vice chair though.
Yeah, now we need a vice chair. All right. Does anybody feel compelled or to either step into the position or nominate any board member? I have a member I will nominate, and that is Charity Mize.
I'll accept.
You'll accept?
Yes.
All right. Do we need a second for a nomination?
I'll second that.
Okay, there you go. We got one.
Okay, second by Corey. Are there any other nominations or volunteers?
Are you looking at me?
I'm just looking at everybody, Frida. All right. Seeing none, I will deduce that the nominations are closed and we have basically one candidate. All in favor of Charity becoming vice chair, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Better not. All right.
Congratulations to you both. Look forward to working with both of you, even temporarily. All right. So,
Item 2 is you.
yep, I was going to say, we were supposed to have a different presentation, and at the last moment, it was not ready. There were some details to be worked out. So I'm hoping that next month we will have an Asteria in front of you all. So this evening, we're trying something a little bit different. Okay. We're hoping to try something different. All right, here we go.
It looks like it's showing on my screen.
Well, he's getting set up. I looked at these articles that they included here, and very much out of curiosity, I called a couple of realtor friends of mine because I thought, does this really relate to Pittsburgh? And they both said, you're hard pressed to find decent housing in Pittsburgh for under $400,000. And if there was one under 400 or under 350, it's not going to be out there long. And that blew me away.
Our goal for tonight is to show you how this information does apply to you. We're going to find also. Well, at least it's up. Okay. Can we go full screen, or is that going to blow something up? Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. I feel better now. All right. So I'm coming here this evening to talk to you all about some affordable housing basics. And I want to explain to you that in my mind, the affordable housing issue is a three-legged stool. The sense that it's a three-legged stool is, of course, with any other three-legged stool, you have to have all three legs standing or the stool becomes unstable. So I want to describe what we've done, and then I want to talk about the part that people who are going to buy the housing need to do to join us in this process. So in this case, the three-legged stool is made up of price, availability, and then some important variables that are buyer controlled. Next, thank you so much. So most of our affordable housing discussions so far have centered on the price point. I think you all would say that we have really driven that particular item home. We're looking for the builders, the developers to come up with a product that is at a price point that it fits into a certain criteria. And our town goals include relieving cost burden, increasing the availability of the product, which is where Carl was just heading a second ago, and ensuring lasting affordability, which is 30 plus years. So we're looking for all three of those, but there are two major components of home buying that we haven't really discussed ever in this forum, and we're going to try it tonight in this very brief presentation. First question is whether you're going to buy or whether you're going to rent, which one fits your situation better. And then what roles do your credit score, your down payment, and your annual continuing home maintenance play in home buying and in long-term ownership? Some of these visuals are actually things from here and some are not. So going to our next slide, as I said, it's a three-legged stool. Each one of these are equally important and each one is part of the process. We've got price, we have availability, and then we have buyer variables. These are things that the local government can't control. We're doing some things to help with all three, but definitely the first two we've got covered. The price is set by the builder. It's designed to allow a certain number of buyers to reduce their cost burden, which is 30% of pre-tax income. So they're going to spend that or less on the housing and the associated factors, which would be the utilities, the taxes, and the insurance. And the goal is setting a price that's at 60 to 80% of our average median income for the area. So we've talked about this a little bit. That's the price component of it. Availability is one that I have some personal experience with. I wasn't looking for an affordable house necessarily, but when I went to buy a house and I pre-qualified for a loan, one of the first things that my bank said to me and my realtor said to me during our first meeting, I first met her, was there are 9 properties in Wake County that match your price point. My price point was not in the affordable category, but there were 9 available. This was during that period of time where things would go on the market at like 6 in the morning. At noon, there was a deal. And by 2 o'clock, you set a closing and your closing was 10 days later. So there was a very tight market, but there were only 9 products. In our case, what we're looking for in terms of availability is it either needs to be in town or in the nearby ETJ. It needs to be right sized, accommodate 1 or 2 adults plus any children or extended family. We know we're not all looking for a tiny house. If you're a family of 5, you're looking for something larger. You need to be on a school bus route close to the owner's work. Be nice if the owner could actually work either from home or could walk to their work, which as we increase the amount of broadband available, we will be able to go from our current 39% work from home to a number that's a little bit more in keeping with the modern market. And you want some conveniences nearby, shopping. And when I say shopping, I'm not talking about going out to look for a new outfit. I'm talking about shopping for food, shopping for necessities, dining, which we do have some of, and medical services, which we have quite a few on the way. Now over to our third one, which is the part where we're going to really drill down tonight. These are the buyer variables. The first is your annual household income by all sources. So if it's 1 person, 2 people, whatever, however your money actually comes in, you need to have an actual budget. There is a series of credit scoring items, and we're going to go over those tonight. We need to figure out your credit worthiness because that will determine your APR, your annual percentage rate for your mortgage, and it will also determine your payment. We're going to go over how that would actually work. And then down payment itself is the money that you have to put into the project. It's either available from your personal resources. It could be a family member that gets it for you. There are government agencies that do for a very small fraction of people. I do want to point out that within down payment, you have the typical down payment, which is 20% down. That keeps you from having to buy mortgage insurance. You can do as little as 3 to 5%, depending on what kind of loan you have, or you can put up considerably more. Now, the word of warning I'm going to tell you is that if you go below 20%, you will have to buy mortgage insurance. Your mortgage insurance stays with you until 78% of the balance is paid. So on the mortgage we're going to look at tonight, that would be $280 extra a month that you would be paying in mortgage insurance. So it's your house payment plus everything that goes with it, plus your mortgage insurance if you don't put down 20%. So that's why it's really important to try to find a way to put down 20%. So this is where we're going tonight. Now, moving in here, I want to remind you of some information that we have shared with you all over the last couple of months, but I want to really drive it home. There's something called the American Community Profile, and it comes from the U.S. Census Bureau. And it is a 3 to 5 year look at a lot of characteristics that are non-obvious. And what they've determined for Central North Carolina, because those articles I gave you were national, one of the things that I told you when we're going over demographics this year is how similar we are to average state and average national. We're not lower income nationally or than national. We're not lower than the state. We're exactly at the medium point, which is important for tonight. So the assumption on the American Community Profile for Central North Carolina is the approximate cost for maintenance for your home is $4,500 a year or $375 a month. This would cover things like mowing your grass. It would also, as I say here, part of the decision to rent or buy involves availability of funds beyond the down payment and your monthly payment to cover inevitable but unplanned costs like appliance replacement, plumbing, heating, cooling repairs, roof repairs, rotten siding, window framing. You know, you buy a brand new house, it doesn't really tell you very much. When you buy a brand new HVAC unit, they last 9 years. You will have to replace it after 9 years. If you, in my case, I recently bought a unit for a part of my house that had really poor air conditioning and poor heating. It was $5,000 down to get the item. And then I had to increase the natural gas line size. I had to make an electrical adjustment to the house. Basically threw in $7,000. In 9 years, I'll have to do that again. The unit that came with my house is actually 2 years from having to be replaced. So let me just say, when you buy a house, you're renting it and you're adding a bunch of stuff to it. But these are all maintenance costs that go with home ownership. I'm sorry, I was trying to make a lot of noise. Go to the next slide if you don't mind. Now, these are some apartment complexes. One's in Chapel Hill and one's in Charlotte. So we're still in this state. The same study, which is the American study from the census, spelled out something that I did share with you all, which was a little shocking the first time you heard it, which is that there is a less than 5% of the long-term renters, people who rent for more than 10 years, who eventually go on to buy a house. It is not an automatic. It is not something that is going to necessarily happen. There are people who are really cut out for home ownership, and there are people who really are not cut out for home ownership. And it's entirely your decision to figure out which one you are. Now, the good news, this is a pro and con in this next two. Your ownership would control some of your costs. It makes your monthly payment more reliable, although I have to tell you, quite frankly, mine's gone up 5 times since I bought my house 6 years ago. So let me say it does inch up incrementally. The other thing to remember is when my water heater died, when I was a tenant, the 14 years that I rented between ownership of 2 different houses, I made a phone call at 3:30 in the morning, and at 8 the next morning, there was a plumber on my doorstep because my lease said there had to be. Now that I'm my own landlord, if my water heater dies, as it did the second month that I was in my current house, I have to tell you it was my responsibility to take care of it. There's a lot of boiling water on top of the stove until we got that straight. They couldn't come for 2 weeks. Renting allows you to relocate with minimal associated cost, eliminates the need to list a house and sell it. It also eliminates the need for you to buy it. At the same time, you know, you're at the mercy of the landlord and the local market. Something a little odd happened in my area of the state, which is that a lot of new apartment buildings and a lot of luxury condominiums came on the market fairly recently with a whole slate of $1.1 million houses. And interestingly enough, it caused local rent to go down by $900 a month. That's worth digging into where that came from. The 2 articles that I supplied you all with this month, one comes from NPR, which is National Public Radio, and the other one comes from the National Home Builders Association. So the NPR article, which was a little scant, but basically they pointed out that you need more than $100,000 in income to afford a typical American home. Now, what they pointed out in this article is that this average home sale nationally in April of this year was $403,000. And they point out that your household income has to exceed $110,000 per year to afford the down payment, the monthly payment, and the associated maintenance costs. So if you don't find yourself in a coupling or an arrangement at home where you're making at least $110,000, you're going to have to find a house that's less than $403,000. The article does also point out that this estimate is 50% higher than it was 4 years ago during the pandemic. And a lot of pandemic household buyers actually have placed their houses on the market as the price and the interest rate has actually gone down. Prices have gone up. This next article has a chart that's fun to look at, and it's really interesting. But when you dig down, it gets even more interesting. States that half of the households in America, 66 million households, cannot afford a $250,000 house. In this example, the minimum income that's required to purchase a $150,000 home with a mortgage rate of 6.5, which up until last week was about the standard, and we'll talk about how that fluctuates, is $45,975. So if you're buying a $300,000 home, you're going to need about $100,000 of worth of income, which I think we may have covered earlier. Now, the nationwide median home price for a new single-family home is $495,750, which I think, speaking to local realtors, you discover that it's considerably higher here. 565 to 675 is the local average. So roughly 77% of US households cannot afford the median price new home based on a mortgage rate of 6.5. I do want to tell you that this chart right here, which is very informative, assumes that you're doing a 10% down payment, and they have not factored in the cost of your mortgage insurance. But a more traditional down payment would be $99,150 on that same $495,000 house. I do not feel that that is information that is common knowledge in the United States. I think most people look at a $100,000 down payment and go, whoa. Now, your credit score will determine your monthly payment. We're going to talk about what that factor is in just a second. So we'll change slides. You all may have heard of FICO. If you have one of the credit cards I have, Capital One, they drive that one home every single month. But there are two types of credit scores that are involved in mortgages. And I do want to point out to you that 90% of US mortgages involve your FICO score. So it goes from very poor, which is 300 to 579, which, by the way, will not get you a mortgage at all. I want to be clear about that. If your credit score is 300 to 579, you are not eligible for a loan from a bank. Over here to the very good and up to exceptional, I do want to point out that only 23% of the US population has a FICO score over 800. So it's a very exclusive club. It's not quite the top 1%, but it's pretty high. I do want to point out to you that it estimates your credit worthiness and your risk of defaulting on a loan. And if you drop down to about the fifth little paragraph there, it says how to improve it: paying bills on time, using less than 30% of your available credit, and then having a mix of credit types helps with your FICO score. I was raised in a household where we were taught to believe that you had to pay for everything with cash, which actually doesn't help you when you try to buy a house. The assumption is you bought several things on payments, and preferably another house is what the bank's looking for. But I did want to point out that it is a fact that you cannot get a loan with a credit score in that very poor category up top, or in the poor to very poor in the Vantage score. Vantage score is used by certain banks. So one of the things that I was challenged to do by our town attorney was find a local example of what I was talking about. And I found one here in Powell Place. This house is on the market, and I don't have a pointer, but I wish I did, because I want to point something out, y'all. I'm going to try to do this by walking over to where you can see me. Every time you see an ad on Zillow, which is what this is, you're going to see a number right there, and that says your estimated payment. So if I was the normal consumer, which some days I feel like the normal consumer, I would look at this and I would say to my closest person in my house, gosh, honey, we can look at a $379,800 house, and my house payment will not be but $1,565 a month. That's not true. It's a great story, and I love that story. So this one here is priced at actually 72% of AMI. We figured that out before I got into this meeting tonight, but I did point out this is right priced. So this is when you tell the developer, I need you to peel $200,000 off your asking house for a price. This is the price point you're going to be at. And it is a 2-bedroom, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath with nearly 1,450 square feet. It's roomy-ish. Is it the roomiest house I've ever seen? No. I did want to point out to you that there's a $40 HOA fee. I'm not sure what their HOA does, but I would guess from looking at this yard, they don't mow the grass. They might cut down trees. Oh, are you going to tell me about that?
Yeah, I live there. They don't do that.
What do they do for $40?
We have some trees along the lanes that they maintain,
Yes, ma'am.
and that should be about, and we have some retention pond kind of
Oh, okay.
things.
So it's about stormwater, and it's about
Yes, that's it.
Mine covers everything under the sun. They do the roof, they paint your house, they pressure wash it and all that. My HOA fee is closer to 500. But anyway, and so it's extreme, and my neighbors complain about it incessantly. With that in mind, so I'm gonna say 40 is good if that's what you're doing. And you do have to have a lot of houses. Now, the thing about this one is the estimated house payment, $1,565, is actually a little bit better than local rent, or it's at least comparable. And it's attractive and it's close to most of the amenities you want. It's close to schools and the shopping I was talking about, the necessity shopping, few non-necessities in there as well. There are some town services nearby, and that sounds good. So I was sitting there the day that I started playing with this, and I encourage you all to get on Zillow and play too, because it's fun. When you click on that thing that says your estimate, you get this. No, you won't get it when you click. You're going to go to the next slide. To the miracle of going to another slide. Okay, so the first assumption here is that you're going to pay $175,000 down, which is 46% of the asking price. You also have to have a credit score of 720 to qualify for this. This is all in that right hand. I'm pointing here, but I'm talking about what's on your screen right there. So if you look at the top thing, your principal and interest is $1,180. Property taxes are $212 a month. Your home insurance is about $133. HOA is $40. Your home price is $397,800. Your down payment is $175, which is 46%. Your score has to be 720 or above. It's a 30-year fixed rate, 5.63. So that's a very attractive rate. But I thought, wow, what if you apply, and you can, if you go into this thing, down at the bottom, it'll say custom, or up top where it says customized payment. If you click on that on real Zillow, not fake Zillow in this here, it will take you over where you can enter variables. And the two you can enter is whether you're paying a dollar amount for the down payment or whether you're doing a percentage, and then what your actual credit score is. And when you do that, it populates the rest. So I thought, let's go over here and see what happens. So same house, 20% down, which is average, about 100,000 less. I'm maintaining the 720 credit score and above. I want that fixed rate, but if you flip back to the last one, I think we're still at 5.63. Next, there you go. But your house payment just went up $570 by not paying $100,000 more down. Okay. Now let's see what happens if you don't have stellar credit. Same home, 20% down, credit score of 580 to 619, because I wanted it to be significantly different. Same 30-year fixed rate. You went from 5.63 to 6.05. It is $651 higher monthly than the advertised rate. And that $4,500 a year maintenance we were talking about scenario, and I'm saying mowing your grass and doing the normal stuff you do to your house, runs about $375 a month in most households in the United States. And in North Carolina, it runs that high or a little bit higher. Central North Carolina, that is the figure. And so your house payment would basically be $2,600. So that's a little disturbing, but that's at least a nice lesson in home financing. Let's just keep going to the next slide. Now, there's some other options that you may wish to consider if this is bewildering. We're going to cover three of them. The apartments at Mosaic are over here at the bottom. It says at Mosaic. Yes, ma'am. And then over here, this duplex, you know, when you look at a duplex or a triplex or a quadruplex, you think, oh my God, this is going to be just like college. I'm going to have noisy neighbors. I can hear straight through the walls. I just don't know about all this. But I wanted y'all to look at this arrangement a little bit closely because I want you to see what's going on. Where you see the front windows, each of those are the living rooms, and they're separated by a pair of garages. You can get just as loud in that living room as you want to. There's an entry from the garage, and there's a half bath in there, and then there's stairs that take you upstairs. And when we get on that second floor where there are 3 full bedrooms and a loft, which actually could double as a bedroom because it's 17 by 9.2 as far as feet. The only thing it's missing is a closet. It has a stairway, which is a little interesting. It's wide open, but you do have an HVAC closet. You also have a full bath that you have access to. So, I mean, this is a viable option. Renting this or buying this is not bad. When I bought a townhouse the very first time, I said, gosh, they never appreciate in value. Yeah, they do. The one I'm in has gone up $200,000 in just the time I've owned it. So I'm going to say that, yes, they do. So those old rules, not so helpful. There's one other option that we discussed here, and we're way ahead of the pack on this one, which is ADUs. So you either buy a house that you decide to put an accessory dwelling unit in the backyard, or you build an ADU in someone else's backyard. And these are some of many options. Within our UDO, we currently have An attached or detached, excuse me, is 50% of the size of the primary residence, 1,200 square feet at the maximum. I want to point out that each of these examples here, you would spend upwards of $300,000 on construction and whatnot, but you would be sharing a lot with somebody, or you could build this as an income for your income in your current house. You would have an income unit in the back. So this is one of the many ways, but we actually allow these in very nearly every residential district. The only issue that you run into is if your lot's not very big, this may not be a viable option. So I just wanted you all to get a feel. Certainly Carl got a little ahead of me and did some homework, and I appreciate it. Part of the article was supposed to be stimulating your interest in a topic that I think that we haven't covered much, but I did want you all to see that certainly in our particular case, our job has been to get the developers to make a product available. It has been to make sure that it's convenient and then to encourage multiple options. I mean, we certainly have more apartments and more townhomes and more other things than perhaps the town started with. And all those things add to the affordability of it. I would certainly welcome questions at this point if you have any.
You know, one, Randy, what leverage do we have, us, the planning board and or the town board, to push this on any developer?
Well, the affordable part, we're already doing that. The leverage has come in the case of Robertson's Creek, the one we just did. Those conditions were that they had to have up to 10% of the site is affordable. So, but the price point you're going to hit is the one that was discussed tonight. So the missing part about that is education, outreach to the public, maybe through church, civic groups, whatever, on the importance of keeping your credit score high. Certainly some financial, learning about financial. Certainly in our particular case, we would have the option of the first house that I ever bought, as I was telling Jenna when we first got in here, the lion's share of my down payment was made by NCHFA, and that program is still available. The big difference, as I was telling Brian earlier today when we were sitting around the office, when I bought my first house, $65,000, which is the cap on where you can actually assist somebody in this way. In 1987, that was an amazing salary, and that would have been nothing to be concerned about. And two people living together making $67,000 was a dream. At this point, $67,000 does not buy you any of these homes. So the assistance program that helped me initially only helped 134 people in North Carolina last year. If I had the ear of a elected official at the state level or at the national level, my conversation would be, we need some realistic options for people as far as getting some financing. Traditional bank financing, that was what we talked about tonight, and I think you all would probably agree that it's less than stellar. We are doing our best to keep up our two legs of this stool, and I feel that there's room for us to assist on the third piece. I'm going to say that we are currently building a town with very high-paying jobs. Certainly most of the jobs that are coming to the area that we've been discussing would pay enough money, and certainly as we get internet reaching the level where your high-speed home internet is significantly better than it is today, I'm going to say that working from home is a lot more viable. In 2020, when because of the COVID shutdown, I had to work at home in my own neighborhood, I learned two things the first week. I knew exactly when 8 o'clock was every morning, and I knew exactly when 5 o'clock was every day. Because at 8 o'clock every morning, my 500 megabytes per second internet went down to 12. And it stayed down to 12 until 5:05 when it was back flying. So the first thing I learned as a consumer is I needed better internet. And I went to every service provider in Wake County and said, I need a better option. My neighborhood was not set up for work at home, and a lot of places are not. I'm talking about a population center for the state, the second highest population in the state, and working from home is some neighborhoods, yes, a lot of neighborhoods, no. And of course, the lockdown was going on, so sitting in a coffee house with a laptop was not an option. But let me just say, every single piece kind of all works together. When people come in and they're putting, if you'll go back a slide or two onto the, I think we're there at the last one, the one with the pictures of the multifamily and whatever. When people come in and they say, I want to put in townhouses and I want to put in these multifamily developments, I realize that if your sensibilities are more towards single family residential, the thing to bear in mind is that the primary cost driver in one of these projects, particularly in this case, the duplex, is the cost of the land. So if you are taking up less land and we are using our resources more efficiently, it may feel like you want real bad to do single family, but these are considerably less expensive in terms of infrastructure, and the actual cost of living there is potentially lower. Yes.
Good question. Are there incentives for landlords to offer lower rent?
The only incentives that are available in this state have to be given to the homeowner, not to the landlord, not to the builder, and not to the landlord.
I suppose I'm talking about the homeowner.
The homeowner, yes.
Like if the homeowner is offering the house for a lower rent.
I still think you'd have to be owner occupied.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know that's a big concern whenever we have someone offering affordable housing units.
Yeah.
Is that someone's just going to come in, buy them all and rent them out?
Well, in the case of certainly with the land trust that we were talking about recently, the land trust would own the dirt, and part of their thing is a 99-year where they keep it capped.
That's the first instance of that though that we.
Yeah. Well, with individual, that is one of the built-in problems with individual builders is you certainly can make sure that it's affordable for the first buyer, but the issue we're having is getting the total detail worked out about how you make it affordable for the next couple of buyers for 30 years.
Not even the buyer too, the occupant, right? Because I feel like some people are buying that and then just turning around and renting it.
Yeah. Well, in the cases where they're allowed to do that, I guess that's something we need to work on.
Yeah, it'd be great if we could like find some kind of way to, or if there was some kind of way to follow through on that.
Currently, there is not.
Besides the land trust, that was appealing.
Well, currently, certainly, currently there is not.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that there doesn't need to be.
Mhm.
And the specific issue is that, there's a shortage of somewhere between 3 and 10 million houses nationwide. And the issue was that when the collapse happened in 2007, the engine stopped running for a while there.
Sure.
And the houses that would have been built in that time period just never got built. So here we sit.
Okay.
I didn't say it's solved. We're definitely going to need to work on it.
So if I remember, the Mosaic condos are quite expensive themselves.
Yes.
I think if I remember, like a 1-bedroom was like 360 something. I think it was quite high, but I don't know. So do you have any?
I don't have any information about that one, but I'm going to say that it varies from place to place. Certainly, as I said, when I made the decision to buy in my own neighborhood, the average rent was $2,600 and it's now $1,350. So as more housing has become available and people have removed themselves from where they were and gone up a level, that has taken care of some of that. This I can't really speak to, but I'm going to say that we have other multifamily projects coming in that are not this and are not Chatham Park.
And I know that, I think.
But it is easier within rental, to keep the price affordable than it is in single family.
If I remember correctly, I guess what I'm wondering is, some municipalities, don't they incentivize builders with like funds for teachers and public servant kind of things? Is there?
Some do. Some do.
How do those work? Is it from the municipality to the teacher?
Municipality becomes the owner.
Well, the municipality is the owner
Or
itself.
is the landlord to those people, yes.
The one over at Mosaic, the apartment complex, Chatham County Schools made, because they're wanting to keep teachers.
Yes.
Especially new ones, they are offering like a cheaper rent, but you gotta be there and in the apartment complex. And they're like, look at like 18.
But in that case, the subsidy is still being paid by the county.
Yeah.
Which sort of it makes them like you're,
Pay a lot, part of it, yeah, but they're giving them that chance right now, Chatham County Schools, but this is the first time they've ever done anything like that. But they want to retain teachers, so they thought this would be a really good incentive.
Is that money out of the school board or out of the general fund? Do you know?
Probably, I think it's probably general fund, but not.
years
They're
ago.
trying to retain as many as they can, and they just thought this would help. And they also make the statement that is, you can't really afford off of your teacher salary. So they want to try to give you some help, being that you can't afford off the teacher salary.
Probably 15 years ago, Dare County tried a program that was somewhat similar. And in their particular case, Dare County had to become the owner of the properties. In their particular case, the teachers or the law enforcement or whoever was actually occupying the first, it wasn't just first right of sale. It was literally when the project got sold, when you sold your house, you were selling it back to the entity that built it, which in that case was Dare County. And there was a smidge, very similar to what we were talking about last month with the land trust, where there's like, you know, you get a little bit back, but not a whole lot.
A lot.
Yeah, because I have a friend who lives in Breckenridge, Colorado.
Yes, ma'am.
Works for the county.
Yes, ma'am.
And in that area, it's so incredibly expensive that that she lives in a place, a townhouse owned by the county. And then she pays, I think, $800 or $900 in rent, as long as she maintains her employment as the as working for the county government. But it sounds like the option is either to subsidize, but still make it unaffordable,
Yeah.
or to own outright.
Yes.
Um,
That seemed to be the current group, but remember, you all will long outlive me, and I'm planning on you having a much better idea.
Are there any other sort of innovative ideas that you know about in terms of helping with affordability?
Well, like I said, the land trust model is one. Certainly Habitat has their own, which is slightly different. And then there are, well, I'm certainly going to say in the place where I live and in the complex that I'm in, there are 6 units that are affordable. They're absolutely no different than anything else. Obviously, you're the owner of your place, so you can modify your place and make it amazing, or you can leave it pretty much as it was. But 6 of them sold at a price that was $280,000 lower than what I paid, for an example. The big difference there is that literally the finishes were identical. When I moved in, I saw things I wanted to change. There are people who don't change it at all. They literally stay there, but there's no big, A over the front door to let you know it's affordable. It just is.
Yeah. And sorry, one more question.
Dive in. Go ahead.
In terms of the AMI number,
Yes, ma'am.
so isn't our particular area, specifically Pittsburgh, quite high comparatively to other parts of the state? So even
No.
it's not here.
It's high compared to some other parts of the state. In our case, ours is bumped up because we're included in Durham and Chapel Hill.
Mhm.
But let me say that, the AMI in a place like Charlotte would be significantly higher. A place like, Whiteville would be considerably lower.
Lower.
So it really depends on where you are.
Mhm.
But let me say that with the median household income being high, generally very high prices for housing kind of goes hand in hand with it. It seems like those two are just married.
Mhm.
We should work on the divorce.
Earlier, Jonathan clarified that the school system is using grant money to fund the teacher housing program.
Okay.
Hey, grant money.
Grandma.
So,
I'm limited.
I
Then,
didn't get that information.
well, I'm just thinking it's a grant, so it's, probably not forever,
Sometimes they're reoccurring grants, but.
but still.
I say certainly as it's moving along, I would hope that it became recurring.
We don't have to end up paying the highest part.
Yeah, well, the model that I saw, and I did see that particular one, we were in that meeting, it was significantly a reduction.
It is.
That's not a bad thing.
No, it's not.
Certainly, the whole point in this evening was just to explain that as much as we have done to get the price down from the builders, And as much as we're trying to increase the availability, and we try every single day to do that, the third piece is working on how you actually get in.
Any other comments or questions for Randy
I have
or?
a question.
Yes, sir.
In reading the paperwork from last month's meeting, on the one out on,
Boston Chapel?
Boston Chapel?
and some fine print at the back of that thing, there was a buyback thing that I found in there that I didn't really understand. There's something about that if there wasn't a buyer available for the house or the apartment at the time, that the owner could pay a fee of like $10,000, have it removed.
That I don't recall.
I know there was some language in there about the 50,000. That was the one I asked you about with the, if it hadn't sold before the final plat recorded.
Exactly.
And they said they had already removed that.
Oh, okay. Exceptional.
But yes, it was, I thought the same thing. It was,
When I saw that, I said, yeah.
it wasn't.
Nobody available to buy it, just pay the 10,000, put it back on the market. Is that a normal language to be in a group, a thing of that type?
I don't know that I would describe it as normal. I've seen it before, but I don't think that it's typical.
Any other comments for Randy?
One more, and
Get my hat, please.
the documents that we have around our land use and UDO
Yes, ma'am.
encourage affordable housing.
Yes,
Encourage is
Yes,
the
ma'am.
keyword though.
yes, ma'am.
And we have no requirements for percentages of affordable housing.
You can't do that.
We
Lee.
cannot do that.
But we had a group of incentives that seemed to not be quite hitting the mark. And so we decided to retool the program, and it's still a work in progress. We've done quite a bit with it, but we're still working. And now you can't just automatically say that it must be this or no.
Randy, on that thought, if we're doing a conditional rezoning,
Yes.
that'd be a bargaining tool?
That's what it's been the last several times.
Okay. So we can ask for that and maybe give them some concessions on density or setbacks or
That's the way it's currently set up. Yes, sir.
whatever.
That's what we're hoping will work. All right.
Hey, while you're up there, are you?
I'll just give you the planning updates while I'm here. Did it go down or are we still? Okay, I'm fine either way. Guys, I'm perfectly fine working with or without it. Are we trying to get it back? Oh, here we are. See, here we are.
I stopped sharing. That's what happened, and there was that.
Okay. So, as I said, Asteria did not make it to us this time. I believe we feel that it may be here next month.
Almost certainly.
Almost certainly. We also have at least one other conditional zoning. We have someone in the area where Madison Ridge is, who is trying to set up a landscaping sort of store, so we'll see how that works. But we have a couple of projects. I mean, we're super excited with the progress that we are making. But Asteria, I think, is probably going to be the most exciting thing to come through.
Yeah, I think maybe one or two text amendments, but no.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. And quite a few text amendments. Actually, if you all saw the news this week, which is kind of hard not to see, the legislature overrode the governor's veto. And so we are still processing the bill that relates to building inspection and planning and stuff. We sat down with it today, but it's 71 pages, so it's a lot to read. And I'm going next month to the North Carolina Planning Association's annual conference. It's going to be in Greenville, and we always have a 1 to 2 day session on legislative changes. So I'm really looking forward to it. And we'll be, of course, bringing something back. All right. Anything else?
Any questions for Randy or staff? Before we move into board comment period. Okay. So we are into board comment period. Comments? Quiet bunch tonight. Like to welcome you again, Brian. Welcome to the team. I got a request, Randy, of somebody on staff. Would one of y'all send us an email and remind us of our term
Yes,
dates?
yes, we'll have that taken care of.
Okay. And I am going to send all y'all on the board an email in the next day or two and request, and that's totally up to you, but request your cell phone number. And my cell phone will be in there. So feel free to call me anytime for anything. I also encourage you, especially when we get our packet, you'll see who from staff is assigned for any given project. So if you don't understand anything that's in there, feel free to reach out to them. Reach out to me, but I'm probably just going to send you right on to them if I haven't talked to them beforehand. But I'd like to thank Charity for coming on as vice chair, and we will move on. Any other comments from anybody?
Thank you guys for stepping up to
I don't know that I stepped.
handle that.
But along those lines, we have a lot of. I'm looking at, excuse me, Frida and Bill. I'm looking at the young people here, and you came in very enthusiastically, and that's very encouraging for me and for the town. So I may not sit in this position long, so y'all start getting yourself geared up, in case I fade away. Any other comments?
Ominous, but.
Pardon?
Said it sounds ominous.
Ominous.
You're gonna fade away.
Yeah. If no other comments, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
To adjourn.
Bill Baker moves, we adjourn. Frida second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. We are adjourned.
Next month.
Yeah.